Hollywood's golden age wasn't always so golden. In fact, some of its biggest stars were in movies that were almost erased from history. In the next 15 seconds, I'll show you the films that faced intense backlash, reveal the secret stories behind their censorship battles, and promise you'll see vintage cinema in a whole new light. Frustrated by sanitized movie histories? Let's uncover the real story. The Birth of a Nation, 1915. Released in 1915, The Birth of a Nation was a landmark in scale and ambition. It pioneered cinematic techniques such as sweeping battle sequences and dramatic close-ups that influenced generations of directors. Yet, its technical brilliance is overshadowed by its deeply racist narrative, which glorified the Ku Klux Klan and spread harmful stereotypes. The film provoked outrage and protests, sparking fierce debates about cinema's power to shape culture. Today, it stands as both a technological breakthrough and a cautionary tale about how art can also perpetuate hate. Scarface, 1932. When Scarface hit theaters in 1932, audiences were stunned by its raw depiction of crime and bloodshed. Its ruthless gangster protagonist blurred the line between villain and celebrity, a concept shocking at the time. The backlash was swift. Critics accused it of corrupting youth, and the controversy helped usher in stricter censorship codes. Over time, however, Scarface has been reevaluated as a bold reflection of America's fascination with organized crime. Its influence echoes through nearly every gangster film that followed. Freaks, 1932. Todd Browning's Freaks was unlike anything moviegoers had ever seen. Starring real carnival performers with physical differences, it told a haunting story of betrayal and revenge within a traveling sideshow. While some viewers found it empathetic, many branded it grotesque and exploitative. The film was so shocking that it was banned in several places, and stories spread of audience members suffering emotional breakdowns after watching it. Decades later, however, Freaks earned cult status and is now hailed as a daring challenge to society's idea of normal. The Great Dictator, 1940. At the height of World War II, Charlie Chaplin dared to do the unthinkable: satirize dictatorships. The Great Dictator balanced biting political comedy with heartfelt pleas for peace and humanity. Chaplin played both a ruthless fascist and a humble barber, delivering a final speech that remains one of cinema's most moving calls for unity. While some felt it was too risky to mock Hitler and fascism in 1940, the film's bravery paved the way for political satire on screen and still resonates as a timeless defense of freedom. Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Few films have tested audiences' endurance like Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo. Adapted from the Marquis de Sade, the film depicts the sadistic cruelty of fascist rulers with unflinching detail. Upon release, it was banned across multiple countries and condemned as obscene, with many theaters refusing to show it. Yet beneath its shocking surface, Pasolini intended it as a scathing critique of power, corruption, and dehumanization. Decades later, it remains one of the most disturbing yet significant works in the history of cinema. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. When Bernardo Bertolucci released Last Tango in Paris, the world wasn't ready. The film's raw sexual intensity, paired with Marlon Brando's vulnerable performance, sparked outrage. Critics debated whether it was groundbreaking art or outright exploitation. Censors in some countries attempted to cut or ban it outright, while audiences whispered about its infamous scenes for years afterward. Though deeply divisive, it forced cinema to confront intimacy in ways that few films had dared before. Caligula, 1979. Marketed as a historical epic, Caligula quickly became notorious for its explicit sexual content, political manipulation behind the scenes, and chaotic production. With stars like Malcolm McDowell and Helen Mirren, it promised prestige, but shocked audiences instead. Critics labeled it porn disguised as history, and it was heavily censored worldwide. Over time, though, Caligula found an underground following, remembered less for its artistry and more as a symbol of excess in filmmaking. The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988. Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural firestorm. Based on a novel imagining Jesus facing doubt and temptation, the film provoked outrage from religious groups before it even premiered. Protests erupted, screenings were canceled, and theaters were threatened. Yet Scorsese insisted it was a meditation on faith, not a blasphemy. Today, it's recognized as one of the boldest explorations of spirituality ever attempted on screen. Natural Born Killers, 1994. Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers became infamous for its ultraviolent imagery and media satire. The story of two lovers turned serial killers was told with dizzying visual style and biting commentary on celebrity culture. Some critics accused the film of glamorizing violence, and it was even linked, fairly or not, to copycat crimes. But beneath the bloodshed lay a chilling message about society's obsession with spectacle, making it one of the most controversial yet influential films of the 1990s. Peeping Tom, 1960. Before Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho terrified audiences, Michael Powell's Peeping Tom shocked them into outrage. The film followed a cameraman who filmed women at their most vulnerable, right up to their deaths. Critics at the time were horrified, labeling it sick and perverse, and Powell's career was nearly destroyed. Yet years later, it was reevaluated as a brilliant psychological study on voyeurism and the darker side of filmmaking itself. Today, it stands as one of the most influential thrillers ever made. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange was as dazzling as it was disturbing. Its futuristic world of gangs, ultra-violence, and twisted morality left audiences unsettled and censors fuming. In Britain, the backlash grew so intense that Kubrick himself withdrew the film from circulation for decades. Despite the controversy, its striking imagery, haunting music, and philosophical questions about free will cemented it as a cinematic landmark. The Exorcist, 1973. When The Exorcist debuted, people fainted, vomited, and ran out of theaters in terror. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Shot on a shoestring budget, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre felt almost too real. Its grainy, documentary-like style made audiences believe they were witnessing true horror. Censors tried to block it. Parents demanded bans, and some countries outlawed it for years. But horror fans kept it alive, and it eventually became a cult classic that redefined the slasher genre. The legacy of Leatherface still haunts cinema today. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. No film ignited debate quite like I Spit on Your Grave. Branded by critics as vile exploitation, it told a brutal revenge story that many found impossible to watch. Feminists and censors clashed over whether it was empowering or degrading, and theaters across the world banned it. Despite the condemnation, it became a cult film, sparking conversations about censorship, justice, and the fine line between art and exploitation. Pink Flamingos, 1972. John Waters' Pink Flamingos proudly called itself an exercise in bad taste. And audiences quickly found out why. With outrageous stunts, taboo-breaking humor, and shocking imagery, it pushed the boundaries of what cinema could even show. Critics were horrified, but midnight audiences embraced it, laughing and gagging in equal measure. what was once considered pure filth is now celebrated as a cornerstone of cult cinema. The Last House on the Left, 1972. Wes Craven's debut, The Last House on the Left, was raw, brutal, and unrelenting. Inspired by a Swedish classic, it told the story of violence and vengeance in a way that felt disturbingly real. The advertising tagline, "To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a movie," became infamous. Banned in several countries and hacked apart by censors, it nonetheless paved the way for Craven's career and influenced decades of horror to come. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. Few films caused as much uproar as Ruggero Deodato's Cannibal Holocaust. Its mix of staged gore and documentary-style filmmaking was so convincing that the director was arrested and forced to prove his cast was still alive. Accused of animal cruelty and obscenity, the film was banned in more than 50 countries. Yet some critics hailed it as a sharp critique of media exploitation. It remains one of the most notorious films ever made. The Evil Dead, 1981. Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead may look tame compared to today's standards, but in 1981, it was a lightning rod for controversy. Its relentless gore and demonic imagery landed it on the UK's infamous Video Nasties list, making it illegal to rent or sell. Instead of killing the film, the ban made it legendary, and Raimi's inventive direction turned it into one of horror's most beloved cult classics. Blue Velvet, 1986. David Lynch's Blue Velvet peeled back the shiny surface of suburbia to reveal something far darker underneath. Its disturbing imagery, unsettling sexuality, and violent undertones split critics right down the middle. Some called it a masterpiece, others thought it was repulsive. Over time, though, it came to be seen as a defining work of modern cinema, cementing Lynch as a master of surreal, provocative storytelling. Basic Instinct, 1992. When Basic Instinct premiered, it caused a cultural earthquake. Sharon Stone's performance and the film's infamous interrogation scene sparked outrage, fascination, and endless debate. Critics argued over whether it was erotic thriller brilliance or shameless exploitation. Activist groups protested its depiction of sexuality, while audiences packed theaters. Love it or hate it, the film broke taboos and became one of the defining controversies of the 90s. Kids, 1995. Larry Clark's Kids was a raw portrait of youth in the 1990s, unfiltered, uncomfortable, and shocking in its realism. With its young cast engaging in sex, drugs, and reckless behavior, many saw it as immoral and exploitative. Others defended it as an unflinching social warning. Either way, it sparked fierce debates about art, responsibility, and the line between depiction and endorsement. Crash, 1996. David Cronenberg's Crash asked a disturbing question. What if people found erotic pleasure in car crashes? The film's mix of sexy, death, and obsession was instantly polarizing. Banned at several festivals and attacked by critics, it was branded as obscene. Yet its bold originality earned praise from others, including a special jury prize at Cannes. Today, it stands as a daring, if unsettling, piece of cinematic art. Irreversible, 2002. Gaspar Noé's Irreversible stunned audiences with its reverse storytelling and brutal realism. Its infamous assault scene left viewers shaken, with some walking out of theaters. Critics were split, some calling it exploitative, others praising it as groundbreaking. What no one denied was its power. A film so raw, it forced conversations about violence, time, and trauma in ways cinema had never attempted. The Passion of the Christ, 2004. Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ became a global sensation and a lightning rod for controversy. Praised for its intensity, yet criticized for its extreme violence and perceived bias, it divided religious communities and critics alike. Despite the backlash, it became one of the highest-grossing films of its time, proving that controversy can also drive massive success. Hostel, 2005. Eli Roth's Hostel gave rise to a new subgenre dubbed torture porn. Its explicit depictions of human cruelty sparked outrage and bans in several countries. Some dismissed it as senseless gore, while others saw it as a disturbing commentary on privilege and exploitation. Either way, it pushed horror into darker, bloodier territory and left audiences both horrified and fascinated. Antichrist, 2009. Lars von Trier's Antichrist is one of the most polarizing films ever shown at Cannes. Graphic violence, shocking sexuality, and unsettling imagery drove critics to anger and disgust. Some called it misogynistic trash. Others, a daring exploration of grief and madness. Whatever the interpretation, its shocking visuals ensured it a permanent place in cinema's Hall of Controversy. Joker, 2019. Todd Phillips's Joker reignited debate over violence in cinema. Joaquin Phoenix's chilling performance as the failed comedian-turned-killer mesmerized audiences, but critics feared it might inspire real-world violence. Police presence increased at theaters, and heated discussions about mental health and social unrest followed. Despite, or because of, the controversy, it became a box office juggernaut and earned Phoenix an Academy Award. Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit. Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, 2006. Sacha Baron Cohen's Borat blurred the line between comedy and chaos. Mixing staged antics with real people's reactions, the film was hilarious to some and deeply offensive to others. Lawsuits followed, governments protested, and yet audiences couldn't look away. Behind the absurdity, it exposed cultural biases and human behavior in a way no other comedy had dared. From The Birth of a Nation in 1915 to Joker in 2019, these 30 films prove one thing. Cinema is never just entertainment. It can provoke, offend, inspire, and even terrify entire societies. Controversy has always been part of its power, and as long as movies exist, there will be filmmakers daring to test the limits of what audiences can bear.